Hey, it's Daniel and Mariah, and today we're going to talk about one thing that's necessary for all healthy relationships.
This is something that I think I'm most grateful that we've been able to learn over the years. Again, we haven't mastered it. We're actually pretty far from mastering it, but it's something that once I realized how layered and nuanced it is,
Yeah.
and how important it is to the everyday kind of happenings of a relationship, I've realized that I want to put more effort into it. You want to put more effort into it, and we also want to communicate it to others because we do believe that this is like the linchpin to successful relationships. This is like, what is the thing? Do you want to?
The thing
Like,
is,
this was a good lead up,
Yeah.
but people are dying with suspense right now. I
so
can
the
see
thing is effective communication.
Yeah.
So not just communication. Everyone
Yeah,
gives
this
that
is like
answer.
the classic, like, if you ask the couple
Yeah.
in the street, they would say communication.
What's your relationship advice?
Oh,
Good communication.
Healthy communication is the key to
Yeah.
any successful relationship.
But we're talking effective communication.
Yeah.
And this is a little bit different. So
Yeah, and I would say that there's like layers to communication.
Yeah.
There's like, so let's use a case study of like the wife or the husband is at home making dinner because they work from home, for example. And let's use a husband. The husband says to the wife, "Hey, could you communicate to me when you're running late? Because that's helpful as I plan for dinner. It helps me adjust cooking plans, all that stuff." That's like tier 1 of communication.
yeah.
And that's what a lot of people think is like the key to relationships.
Yeah.
And then there's tier 2 as
Yeah,
well.
the next level down would be like, hey, I really value when you communicate to me
Yeah.
that you're coming home late.
Yeah, it makes us feel like a team.
Or like, I feel really frustrated when you don't communicate to
yeah,
me
yeah.
that you're coming home late.
And then-
so like there's like a level of
Yeah.
emotion to it.
Yeah. And then it's like tier 3 is like the communication, like when you don't communicate that you're running late, I feel undervalued, and it actually makes me remember when I was a kid and I was sitting at home with my mom waiting for my dad to come home from work, and she was feeling like very underappreciated, and we felt like forgotten about, and we felt like work was being part. And so I'm not imposing that on you, but that's just how I feel when you come home
Yeah.
late from work and you don't tell me. So it's just like, it's not like a progressive grid in the sense that couples aren't aiming to get to level 3 for everything.
Yeah.
It's just like recognizing that there are different gears of communication.
Yeah.
And knowing which situation requires which level of communication.
Yeah, because you and your significant other could be like, well, I communicate all the time, but for some reason,
Yeah.
it feels like we're not getting it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like maybe because you're not reaching that next like level of, maybe you're not even aware, like self-aware enough to reach that next
Yeah.
level, right?
Yeah, and something that we've learned in communication, because we've had tons of chats about it, is like communication, like good, like level 3, 2, 1 communication, and knowing which one requires what takes a level of like, one, trust in your relationship. Like that level 3 example is very vulnerable, so I have to
Yeah,
trust you
yeah.
that you're going to receive it okay.
Yeah.
But it also takes, 2, a level of self-awareness.
Yeah.
Because only a self-aware person, someone who's really worked on themselves, can really tap into that childhood memory to be like, oh, that's what triggered that insecurity, or that's what triggered that response, that frustrated response out of me.
Yeah.
And so it's so important for couples to work with
And
that.
it's hard to know like when to say those things.
Yeah,
'cause,
yeah,
like,
that's good.
I think something that I struggle with is sometimes maybe I'll be like frustrated or hurt by something, but I'll be like, but you can't mention everything you're frustrated about and the reason behind it, because then that gets to be like almost too hard on a
Yeah.
relationship. You also in a relationship need to know when to hold back and to let like things just roll off your
Yeah.
back or whatever. So sometimes I struggle with like knowing, okay, when do I bring this up?
Yeah.
Not wanting to be a partner who always brings things up like every day.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's kind of like hard to navigate.
Yeah. And I think that like if we use the tier language or the level language, it's like, say there's like the tier 1 or level 1 or level 2, level 3. Then I think something to be named is like the level 0, where it's like not communicating. Like that's sometimes actually the right choice in a specific context. Like, so if I know, for example, oh, she's had a long day, it's been a crazy week, but she forgot to do blank, it's like, that's not the right time to go like level 3, like, oh, when you don't do the dishes, I feel blah, 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 blah. It's like, sometimes the best gear for that is actually 0 and like not dying on that hill, but you just doing the dishes as an act of love and servitude. You know what I mean? And so I think it's so important for people to recognize that sometimes 0 communication is actually good communication.
Yeah.
And it's like that one, like a little like nuanced thing that is important to note.
That's so true. And sometimes it's like, what would I want from them? Like, I feel like the other day, I noticed you took the garbage out, and I was so thankful for that. But in like the same moment, I went to go throw something in the garbage, and the bag was in there. And like, I almost texted you a picture of the garbage and was like, "Can
Just
you
savage.
please put the
Yeah.
bag in?" Like, for context, the bag thing. Well, actually, you don't really ever do that anymore, but you used to do that more. And so like, it's not like a one-time thing.
Yeah.
But then I was like, he took the garbage out. Like, I don't want to take the garbage out. And I would be so annoyed if I like made dinner and then left one dish and you're like, hey, can you do the dishes? Like, so I feel like I really put myself in this situation and was like, and also just gain a new perspective. It's like, be thankful. Like,
and I want to give people like a case study, like a real life case study for where we've implemented a certain tier or certain level in communication, just to give them a grid for like, oh, this is a real, like, almost it gives flesh to the whole framework. So it's like, right now I'm in school and I'm working full time. You're super busy as well. But in this season, it's almost like, especially when it comes to cooking, you've really like taken a line share, like a good majority of the cooking, to free me up to do reading, writing, all the things that are going into my schooling right now. And there was a time like 4 months ago where I said it was almost like a disproportionately busy season with school. And I said, hey, just so you know, this next couple weeks is going to be pretty crazy. Like, I'm going to need your help with that. And I'm going to need more grace because I won't be able to engage as much when it comes to like house duties, especially when it comes to cooking, as I would like to be. And I think I went for like level 2 or maybe even level 3. Maybe I explained like, no. It's either level 2 or level 1. But I think level 3, which would have been more vulnerable for me, and you might have felt like more empowered towards the thing if I said, oh, I'm super busy in this season. It's hard for me to say this right now, but I won't be able to do as much house duties or like cooking as I would like to. And as much as I like to be able to do everything at once and really well, I just have to like almost like fall short of expectations in this season. And you're really going to have to really going to have to put the team on your back when it comes to, and I don't want to do that because that makes me feel vulnerable, makes me feel like weak, like I can't. But it's just like, I chose level 1 or 2, which was okay, but it could have made you feel even more valued and more empowered. Like, oh, I can help you. Like, this is easy for me. You know what I mean? And so that's like a bit of a grid where it's like, I chose level 2, and then I could have went to level 3. But it's, again, like, effective communication in a relationship really goes like, what's the most beneficial gear for this conversation, and how can
I think too, like, your relationship is not gonna get like closer or deeper until you put yourself in those vulnerable positions and like try to work through the change. But so an example I'm thinking about is there was a time where I brought up with you that sometimes, like, I needed a little more from you when I was having a moment where I was crying or emotional, in terms of like a hug or maybe just like the words like it's gonna be okay or stuff like that. And because you were just comforting me in the way you knew how, and it took me so long to say that to you because I didn't want you to think you weren't enough for me. And then also, I didn't want you to take it the wrong way. And also, it was just vulnerable for me to like say that, to be like, oh, I need this. Like, but when you're married, like, you need to say those things that you need. Because otherwise it's going to go on for years and years and that need will never be met. And you'll just kind of sit in this like almost loneliness or frustration that your partner can't. And your partner won't be every single thing you need them to be. Like, they're not superhuman. But I think there's conversations that you can have where you can work through those things. And I feel like after that moment, like, I felt closer to you. I felt more able to open up to you because I knew you knew how I was wanting to be like received or comforted in that moment. And that was so important to me. But like, it was risky, it was vulnerable, and it was hard, but it was worth it, you know? I guess, what would you say to a couple who's like, yeah, but if I brought something up to my significant other, they'd just be like, oh, like, so? Or like, that doesn't really matter. Like, it's not that deep. Like, what would you say to a couple that's like dealing with someone like that?
Yeah, I think it's like slowly inviting each other into deeper levels of communication. Like, I think it's like, say someone's not wanting to go to level 3 so quick. It's like, just slowly take progressions. Like, relationships grow, right? That's like, they're like a living organism.
Yeah.
So it's so important for you to almost like how you would feed like a plant and it grows. It's so important to like feed a relationship, challenge it, expand the pot that you put it in, so that it's slowly, like, you don't put like a really small plant in this massive flower pot right off the bat, unless it's like some unique plant. Usually you go like small pot, then bigger pot, then, you know what I mean? So it's just like, I would say like, oh, if you guys are at level 1 right now, maybe you want to just turn the dial up to like a 1.3 and go like, instead of just saying like, oh, when you're running late, it makes me feel, and you don't let me know, it frustrates me a bit because I put the meal on at a certain time so that it's perfectly hot by the time you get home. It's like, maybe you don't want to go to like your whole childhood past, you know what I mean? But you just want to say like, hey, this is like, so you have to really know where your relationship is at and like slowly add like more space to it to grow. And then like name the thing too. Be like, oh, I feel like I'm not comfortable going as deep with you because you undermine, or like you don't quite value the depth of communication in the same way I do, kind of thing.
Or like, I miss when we used to have deeper conversations and we don't have them as much anymore. I just like think of so many ways relationships change over the years, especially when people have kids or they've been together for a really long time. I think that like, you have to be so intentional about those deep conversations, and it can be almost like kind of awkward to get back into them. But I think that's really good. It's like slowly but surely, and express that you want that from them. And maybe at first their reaction will be like, oh, what? That's weird. Or like, not a great reaction, but who knows? Maybe they'll think about it over the next couple weeks and like soften up to the idea, right?
No, I think that's good. Well, if you have any more suggestions, tips, thoughts, questions when it comes to effective communication in relationships, we'd love for you to add it to the conversation. We do believe that the best conversations are going to be the ones that stem from this conversation in the comments or as you share it with your friends. So make sure to do that.
And make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you next week.